from that point to that point. Test piece. This one's up here. I had to fix this thing first, and I'll insert a couple snapshots of that. I also had to realign that. So these are the tenons I'm cutting. So I'll remove the rest of that material over there on the bandsaw later. Alright, so all my shoulder cuts are done. I've got a few test pieces, which will be nice for fitting my mortises. These are my two end panels. This is the 18-inch deep one. I decided to make the other cabinet that's only 39 inches wide, which is not this piece. I'm going to make that 20 inches deep. And yeah, so I decided to make this cabinet 20 inches deep. And this one here is 18 inches deep. That's what's happening there. It all worked out fine. Typically what I would do now is I remove the rest of this material to create a tenon all on the bandsaw over there. But I remembered I had this jig here. I made this years ago. So what I can do here is I can run these up on here on end, and I can remove the long sections here on the table saw. It's pretty fast and safe. And then the little end part that'll be left, this little part here, I'll remove that on the bandsaw. So I'll get that done in the morning tomorrow, and then if everything goes well, I mean, nothing's going great. There's mosquitoes here, these Chinese mosquitoes that arrived in a shipping container like 5 years ago. That's why I'm all covered up. We're having a heat wave right here in LA right now. I was going to go to Arizona, but it's going to be way too hot this weekend, so I'm just probably going to work. And it stinks to work all covered up because you're hot and sweaty. These mosquitoes have been stinging me in my face. It's insane. But anyhow, tomorrow, hopefully, get this thing all set up, and I'll be able to... What am I doing on that? That's my mortises. So I'll make all my mortises, and then after the mortises are done, what happens is, let's say this here's a panel piece. I'll put a groove where there's got to be a panel on the corresponding parts where there's a panel. Now in these long sections here, I'll make my mortises, and then I do this thing like a plunge cut, where I drop that over the table saw, run it down, lift it, drop it, run it down again, and that's what gives me my groove for my material. And I'll probably be going with a 1/4-inch masonite on these. This looks like it might have... Holy Toledo, this thing warped on me a little bit, which is very strange. That typically doesn't happen. I think it's this heat wave. There's this top one here. I don't like that. But what I'll do, if that's the case, if this is the only one, this will be a hinge piece. So I intend on having 3 hinges. I might have one extra piece I can make if this one... That's very strange. This wood's been sitting here for months, milled. I haven't had an issue. Nothing has moved on me, and now all of a sudden overnight that one part moved on me. That's a little bit of a bummer. But it's not the end of the world, like I said. That's very strange. Anyhow, you saw it here. I'll probably just keep making clips. Maybe I'll get all the tenons done and I'll get the mortises done. I don't know, if you're watching this and then it keeps going and you see the completion of a panel, then that's what happened. If not, maybe you'll see that in another video. Alright. Just got here this morning and setting up the space here. Yesterday before I left, I noticed this top vertical rail for a door had a bit of a bow to it. So I put some weight on this last night in the opposite direction. This thing in the foreground here is an attempt to kill mosquitoes at night when I'm not here. I leave it on while I'm in the shop too. It doesn't do much. These things, man, it's crazy. So should see a downward bow there. I was bending it in the opposite direction. Let's see if that actually did anything. Let's see. Straight now. She's straight now. So, yeah. And again, I think it was just, it got real hot yesterday, and it started off real cool in the morning. So now she's, looks damn near perfect. And again, it'll be fine. If you notice that, after you've milled your lumber and it's acclimated and it sits, and you're going to build your doors, you're not going to, I highly doubt I'm going to see any like major twisting or anything in this. But, you know, let's say one of your doors has a little bit of this thing kind of going on. Use that as your hinge side. Especially on a short door, we're not going to see that really. We shouldn't on this stuff. If that happens, my friggin' head will explode. But on that sort of situation with a tall door, you're going to use at least 3 hinges there. So you're golden. Just use that on the hinge side. The hinges are going to make it perfectly straight, and it's going to line it correctly. Remember, these are inset doors. They're going to fit inside the frame. So that'll align it perfectly with the face frame. We're going to try using this jig this morning and to cut off the tenons. The one that's right there. Okay. This is a cheap and easy little jig I made for shaping up these tenons here. Yesterday I did all the shoulder cuts. I got to cut all this stuff on here now. I'll do a couple of them for you. Of an inch thick. So these little ends here, I'll cut off on the bandsaw. I'll probably show you that too. I added this backer here to get rid of the tear out. cut this off tight to the fence, typically I would do it this way, but I've got so many different sizes, I'm going to attempt this. It's just a test piece. I made a little mistake when I was doing my shoulder cuts on about 3 of these pieces. That's why you see that little saw curve there. It won't matter, but I solved that issue. Now, see, this one here is a lot thicker. I can still do the same cut because of the way I set it up here. Now I'm going to have to clean these up, these shoulders, with a chisel, and then it'll be ready to fit into the mortise. Just so you see what I mean. Okay, so I just did a video on honing my chisels, and the next thing I have to do is clean up these shoulders at these tenons. See that little schmutz right there? So I'm going to show you how I do that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this for you all on camera, but if your chisel's sharp enough, you shouldn't need to hammer it. I had a big lip on this one here at one point. See if I can show you this here. Cut down, straight down from the top. So it's already falling away, and I'll come in like this, lift it up. be able to see there that cleaned it up nicely. Let's do the other side. Again, your chisel should be honed sharp enough. Maybe a different angle here. See if the lighting is any better. I'm trying. There we go. My hand's in the way. This is not easy. Again, if your chisel's sharp enough, you should be able to do that. Without needing to tap it at all. And that's it. So that's what a nicely honed chisel will do for you. But I got to do that to every one of these boards now. Every one of these tenons is going to need to have that done. So it'll take some time. And I'll get to my tomorrow. Tomorrow I will get to making the mortises and making all that work, because it's already 3:30. The last video, my mouth may not be synced to the sound for some reason. I don't know why that is. It might be happening right now. The camera is warm. It's a hot day. It might have something to do with it. Sorry. This is what we're after here. This is the hollow chisel mortiser. Did a couple tests. I had to really adjust this fence, which is attached to the table. There's a handle down here I have to turn that moves this forward and aft. And I had to get that dead center so I can make this slot mortise here. I already made the tenons. You guys saw all that. And the idea here is that you want this to fit in like a puzzle piece. And you need that to be flush on both sides. Now, there's more than just doing that, okay? After I get that right, to come over here to the vise, all right? And I have to clean the mortise out. I'll take this one here and I'll come down the sides, and what I'm trying to do is at the bottom of the mortise, you can imagine both those inside corners, they're slightly rounded because that hollow chisel mortiser can't get it perfect. So then I have to come in here with this chisel, plunge it in, and drag that across the bottom. Same thing on the other side. Make sure I drive this down on all three sides on each end to chop that wood completely away so that it's 90 degrees. Right, where all four sides of this mortise meet the bottom of the mortise. It has to be 90 degrees down there. Perfect. Otherwise, this tenon will not seat properly in that mortise. So, you know, I have to make all these mortises, and then, right, the next step after I make all the mortises is I have to clean out all of those mortises. Oh, yeah. You see this? How you like that? I was putting that bike frame up, and there was a big piece of molding I had for the house. It's got real sharp edges on it. I just placed it there 10 minutes before. And I put the bike frame and I moved it, and what is that? The thing's 12 feet long. It's got a little weight to it. And it was like getting hit in the face with a bat. I really felt like somebody really punched me in the face, and I could tell right as I got hit. Like, well, I felt that before. That's probably bleeding. I don't want to mess with it, make it bleed again, but I can move it open and closed. So it probably should have a stitch or two, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to let it heal. It's not my first time that sort of thing happening. That's why I'm so pretty. All right, let me do this for you on screen so you can see what this is all about here. You'll probably get a kick out of this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this little mortise up here. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the other end. I'm just going to do this one for you because I got a lot to do and I got to get on with the day here, right? And it's warm, so I'm going to turn the fan on after this and keep the wind on me and try to keep the mosquitoes away from me. This makes a little noise, but it's not crazy. When I rotate this, I don't go the full width of this, which is 3/8 of an inch. So I've drawn lines on here to what the parameters are for the length of each mortise. Try to keep it to that. A little bit over is okay. Then I'm going to go back. So I always do 2 passes, and I try to go in between my cut lines. I can see them, in an effort to make the long side walls as smooth as possible, but also you'll see that the dust is coming out of this. The bit lifts it and there's a channel taken out of this 4-sided chisel. This helps do some of the cleanup work for me when I do that. I don't know if I'm in the frame. So if you're looking at me and you don't want to be looking at me, it's a little bit of a workout too, you can imagine. I almost wish they had it where you could have this handle on either side. There's a stop on this side. I'll show you in a moment. I actually didn't adjust the stop. It was already set for a 1-inch deep mortise because that's pretty typical. So the last time I used this machine, I was probably making rails and stiles for doors. I don't remember what that project was. Think about this apron, which is great. When you lean over, the weight's different and it'll pull to one side or the other, so you have to adjust it from time to time. Try to give you another angle here. I don't know if this will help. Just turned the wrong thing. There's locks on here, so if I grab this handle, turn it, that would move this, and I don't want it to move, so thank God I've locked it in place underneath the table. I don't use the machine enough to remember all that all the time. But, you know, 30 minutes into this is going to be hours of work. I'll have it down. I'll do one more after this, and I'll do a tight shot so you can see what it looks like. I also haven't lubed this machine in a while. I just went ahead, this is greased, the rack and pinion is greased. But I also threw some WD-40 in there a couple minutes ago, so she's moving pretty easy now. The underside gears should probably have something done, cleaned up and re-greased. It's not tight because of use or anything, it's just there's dust that flies around in the shop and it gets everywhere, and eventually it finds its way in there. Dust from doing other projects, in the shop. Alright. So that's one. Now remember, as I mentioned to you a few moments ago here, now both of these mortises have to be cleaned out with a chisel. I'll do one more just so I can tighten up on the mortise for you. You can see what that looks like on camera. On your big giant 70-inch television at home, right? Trying to get this going here for you. See if this is entertaining. I usually hone this, but I've done it before, and because I'm only doing poplar, even though poplar is kind of considered a hardwood, it's really like medium to me. It's not as bad as doing maple or mahogany or cherry or something like that, where I've really got to hone this each time, you know, before I use on in each project. So it'll be okay. Try not to come down super hard either, because you end up adjusting your stop. I'll show that to you in a second here. Alright. So, over here on the side, let's back you out of here. On this side, there's this stop mechanism. So, what I'll do is I'll put the piece in to the side of the bit, and then I'll lower the bit, and I'll draw a line on this end here, right, to show me how deep I want to go, and I'll adjust this to that depth or a little bit beyond, and then I'll lift this stop collar, right, with this knob on it, right up to where it hits that, and then I know that's your depth of stop. You really got to crank on this pretty hard to lock that in place. You can see it's just a threaded rod where the side of it has been machined flat so that these stops work. You have a high stop, which I never use, and a low stop. So real rudimentary stuff here. Nothing, you know, nothing crazy, nothing spectacular. Anyhow, that's it. I think that's the end of this video, okay? Because I got to do this. I got to do other things. I'll eventually get the panels and cut the slots in the rails and stiles and make the panels. When I do that, maybe I'll do a video on that. But right now, this was just about how I make my mortises. Yeah, my mortises and my tenons. My mortise and tenons. Mortise and tenon joints. That's all this was. It's probably a pretty long video. But I hope you enjoy it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. I need an aspirin. Remember to be good to one another.